Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a bit about the Boston Celtics. Last night, they played their final game heading into the All-Star break and completely annihilated the Brooklyn Nets by exactly 50 points, 136-86. This was a game where the Nets had pretty much everybody healthy. They were only missing Ben Simmons, and the Celtics were without Jaylen Brown as well as Al Horford, and still completely demolished them, winning every quarter but the last one by at the very least double digits. Tatum had 20.7 rebounds and 9 dimes. Kristaps Porzingis had 15 and 5. Derrick White had 27, 5 and 4. Peyton Pritchard went out there with 28 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. O'Shea Brissett had 11, 4 and 5. Jrue Holiday didn't do much of anything, and it still didn't matter. It was their 6th straight win, and one more statement heading into the All-Star break, and what has kind of been a season of statement so far for the Celtics. Heading into the break, the Celtics sit at both the top of the Eastern Conference and the NBA as a whole, with a record of 43 and 12. That's 31 games above 500, and they're currently on pace for 64 wins, which would be the 4th highest win total in Celtics history, and the most that the Celtics have had since that 2008 title team. They're 6 games ahead of the 2-seeded Cavaliers in the East, and 4.5 games better than the Timberwolves, who currently have the 2nd best record in the NBA at the moment. Truth be told, they've completely dominated the NBA so far this season. They've had 5 win streaks of 5 games or more, and haven't had back-to-back losses since their 6th and 7th games of the season, in which they lost to Minnesota in overtime, who are the 2nd best team in the league right now record-wise, and lost to Philadelphia by 3 points, one of their biggest Eastern Conference rivals, when Joel Embiid is playing. So, every other stretch of the season, they've looked, for the most part, completely unstoppable. They never lose back-to-back games. They very rarely have bad losses. It's a juggernaut of a squad, and yet I feel like I haven't seen that many people talk about them. Maybe I'm just not getting recommended the right stuff on Twitter, NBA, YouTube. Maybe I'm part of the problem, because this is only the 2nd video I've made on the Celtics as like the focal point this entire season. I've of course done, like the every team videos where I talk about every single squad, and I do praise Boston a lot in those videos, but this is just the 2nd video all season where we're solely focusing on them, and the last time I made one was back in November, and to be honest, the reason there's been that big of a gap is because they're just doing the same stuff. They're just dominating the NBA the same way they were at the beginning of the season. We're just now later into the year. But I do want to talk about just how dominant they've been, because I don't think people realize how good this Celtics team truly is. Let's start it off with some stats. At the moment, the Celtics have the best offense, not just in basketball, but the best offense in the history of the sport. There's never been an offense that is putting up as many points as the Boston Celtics are. Not to mention, on the defensive end, they're clamping up as well. They're not just a one-trick pony, because they're also top 3 in defensive rating. They're the only team in the league that is top 3 in both those categories, and one of 2 teams joining OKC that is even top 5 in both those categories. This is easily the most well-rounded team in the entire league. They're also great on the boards. They've got the 4th best rebounding percentage, so they're both securing possessions and finishing them on the defensive end, and also giving their offense more chances on the offensive end. They're also top 5 in turnover percentage, so they're not giving the opposing teams a lot of extra opportunities. They take care of the ball way better than it feels like Celtics teams in the past have. They're also top 6 in true shooting percentage, so they're additionally one of the most efficient teams in the entire league, which does make sense as the best offense in the history of the sport. Not to mention, they've got experience. Sometimes we talk about these great teams, and there are young squads, like I know as a Thunder fan, a lot of people are like, hey, this Thunder team is really good, but they don't really have the experience, so how is that going to play out for them in the playoffs? This Celtics team has the experience. A lot of guys in this roster have been to the NBA Finals, made deep playoff runs. Joe Mazzulla last season coached them to nearly a 3-0 comeback in the Eastern Conference Finals. They've been there and done this before. They're a veteran-led team that's got some young talent. They do everything well. They don't really have a single major flaw in this entire team. Like, if you'd asked me, what's one problem the Celtics team has just purely based off eye test, I might have told you that they don't feel like the best clutch team in the world. Like, they'll get in these close games towards the end. They'll settle for a lot of bad shots. I know a lot of their game-winning attempts are these ridiculous fadeaway threes or super tough mid-ranges. They get a bit into iso ball. This has been a problem with the Celtics for years, and I feel like watching some of their games this season, especially against the top teams, I've still seen some flashes of this. But if you take a look at the numbers, they're maybe the best clutch team in the entire NBA. They've got the 2nd best winning percentage, 5th best offensive rating, 5th best defensive rating, and the 2nd best net rating in the entire league in clutch time games. So even though the eye test may tell you that, hey, they struggle a little bit, they're still getting it done with the best teams in the league. They are getting results continuously everywhere on the court at any time in the game. This lack of flaws is made pretty evident by the fact that they have a net rating at the moment of a plus 10.3, which if you didn't know is absolutely ridiculous. If that number holds, they will be just the 13th team in NBA history to have a net rating of 10 or higher, and they're currently tied for the 10th best net rating in a season of all time. this is not just a great team in the moment, they're currently playing at a historically great level. They currently have a 3-point advantage on the second place Oklahoma City Thunder in terms of net rating, and this would be only the 4th time since 1996-97 that a team had a 3+ point advantage in net rating over the second place team. The other squads that did this were the 2020 Bucks, the 2017 Warriors, and the 2015 Warriors, and 2 of those 3 teams won the NBA title. So the numbers say that the Celtics are historically great, and if you take a look at the roster, how good they are makes a lot of sense. It begins at the top with Jayson Tatum. For as much hate as he gets, he's one of the best players in the world, currently putting up 27.1 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, and 4.8 dimes, to go with a steal on 47.5% shooting from the field and 36.3% from deep. He's got the best field goal percentage of his career, his highest 3-point percentage since 2021, the highest assist per game mark of his entire career. He's a more complete player at the moment than he's ever been. High-level defender, skilled scorer from all over the court. Really, the only problem with Jayson Tatum's game is I feel like sometimes he settles a lot. Like he goes for these tough mid-range jumpers when he could instead attack downhill, get to the basket, or knock down those threes. But even with those slight concerns, Tatum can very clearly, in my opinion, be the best player on a championship team, especially a team with this much talent. Tatum has been the best player on a team that went to the finals and a number of Eastern Conference finals, and the squad around him at the moment is way better than it's ever been before, which is also why I see a lot of people saying, oh, I'm not going to believe in the Celtics because they failed before. This team is way better than any of the other squads they've had in this Jayson Tatum era. Part of that is his co-star in Jaylen Brown, who isn't putting up the numbers that he did last season, but is still having a phenomenal year. He's taken a pretty big backseat with some of the new talent in town, and it's led them to a lot of wins. 22 points per game, 5.5 boards, 3.7 dimes, and 1.1 steal, playing some really solid defense. Jaylen Brown is huge for this team. I think a lot of people look at the way that the Celtics playoff run ended last year in his contract and think Jaylen Brown's not actually that good. JB is a phenomenal player, and he's really critical to everything they do. Someone else who's important is Kristaps Porzingis, the big addition for them in the offseason, the guy that I said was a perfect fit for this team that was going to turn them into the best team in the NBA, and he's done exactly that, doing everything that I was hoping for, and even more. 20.2 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.9 blocks, shooting 53% from the field and 37% from deep. He's been amazing for them defensively as that linchpin, a high-level rim protector, high-level post presence, giving them a new dimension to their offense that they really haven't had in the past. He's been great as a playmaker for this team, as a connector, an outside shot maker. Porzingis does everything. I don't think the numbers truly do it justice, just how good Porzingis has been and how impactful he is. He has been an all-star level player. He didn't make the game, but Porzingis, make no mistake, has given them all-star level impact. It's the same thing for Derrick White, who I said would be a big breakout player for the Celtics this season, even before they traded Marcus Smart, but after they did, I was like, oh yeah, Derrick White's going to have an amazing season, and he's done that. He was getting a lot of all-star conversation before the teams were selected, and it makes sense. 15.6 points per game, 4 boards, 4.7 dimes, a steal, and over a block per game, while knocking down 40% of his threes, and being one of the top 5 guard defenders in the entire world. Right now, he's got to be an all-defensive second team, or at the very least, I would put him an all-defensive first team. He does everything for this Celtics squad, and does not get enough credit, even though people are going to talk about, oh, he shouldn't have gotten all-star hype. Derrick White truly gives them that level of impact. Jrue Holiday as well, another big addition, 13 points per game, 6 rebounds and 5 dimes, shooting 44% from deep. Hasn't popped off the page a lot for Boston, but is giving them amazing defense, playmaking at a high level, part of the reason why their turnover numbers are down. And he's, again, knocking down 44% of his threes, just kind of playing a background role, which is exactly what Jrue Holiday should be doing for them. If you ask me, these 5 guys are easily the most talented starting 5 in the entire NBA. Every one of them can defend, can score, can create off the dribble. They play really well off of each other. It's a well-oiled machine. They are easily the biggest reason why the Celtics have been so historically great. But also off the bench, they do have some guys who are contributing in one way or another. Sam Hauser has been really solid as a shooter off the bench, shooting 41% from deep and playing some pretty solid defense, even sliding into the starting lineup at times when they deal with injury. Peyton Pritchard has been really reliable as a 38% three-point shooter off the bench. Like I said, gave them 28 points last night. He's a spark plug. Al Horford has been great off the bench, shooting 40% from deep, still giving them some really solid down-low defense, grabbing 7 boards, dishing out a few dimes per game, and blocking a shot per contest. Al Horford, despite getting near 40, is still a really good player. Luke Kornet and Neemias Queta have given them some solid minutes. O'Shea Brissett has brought some really good energy for them. And they also just made 2 really solid additions at the deadline to bolster their depth even further. First up, there's Jaden Springer, who gives them just another defensive guard, as if they didn't have enough already, that they can throw into the mix. He showed a lot of flashes in Philadelphia before being traded here. He is young and a pretty raw player, so I don't know how many minutes he's actually going to get, but it's good to just have that piece in there if they deal with an injury to one of the guard spots, or say like Peyton Pritchard's not really holding up. You could throw Jaden Springer into the mix, and I think he could give you some solid minutes. They also added Xavier Tillman, who's a bruising power forward / center that a lot of advanced metrics say is one of the better defending bigs in the entire league. He's great at guarding some of the more physical bigs, like he did a great job against Anthony Davis last year in the playoffs, has had some great moments against like Nikola Jokic, and they're probably not even going to need him to play that many minutes. He's just there as some insurance in that front court, especially if they deal with some injuries. Speaking of injuries, it felt like one of the only things that could derail the Celtics coming into this year was guys getting hurt, and so far they've held up relatively well. A lot of their guys have stayed on the court, but even when guys have missed time, it hasn't really mattered for Boston. Like Porzingis has missed 15 games so far this season, and in those games, the Celtics went 12-3, including wins over Philadelphia twice, Indiana, Orlando, the Clippers, Minnesota, Dallas, and New Orleans. So even when maybe their second best player in Porzingis is missing games, they're still perfectly fine, can blow out teams, and often beat some of the best teams in the world. It just really doesn't matter because they have so much talent, so many guys that can step into the other guys' roles when they miss time. It's just a ridiculously well-built squad. Brad Stevens deserves so much credit for what he's done with his Boston team, how he's reshaped the roster in his time as the GM, like adding Derrick White at a trade deadline move that a lot of people didn't think that much of at the time. Now he's one of the critical pieces to this team. He brought in Porzingis and Jrue Holiday in the offseason to help them fix some of their issues. He has built the best team in the NBA, the best team in the Eastern Conference, and still to this moment, like I picked them before the season, my pick to win the NBA Finals. I know there are a lot of people out there who still think that the Celtics are frauds. They're not actually this good, that they're going to choke in the playoffs, but I'm just letting you know from everything I've seen so far this season, these Celtics are different from any of the other teams that we've seen in the Jayson Tatum era. They're much more well built for the playoffs. They're great on both sides of the ball, historically great at that. They're dominating the NBA at the moment, a league that has a ton of great teams. Just, I don't know if anybody in the Eastern Conference specifically is on the level of Boston at the moment. And there are some great teams, like the Knicks, I think, are fantastic. The Bucks have had their moments. Like the Cavaliers are really putting things together. The Sixers when Embiid is healthy. But at the moment, I think Boston is just kind of on a different level. If they weren't the team heading to the finals out of the East, I would genuinely be completely shocked. But yeah, with all that being said, I appreciate you all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Do you also have the Boston Celtics winning the East? Do you have them winning the NBA Finals? And if you don't, how far do you think they go in the playoffs? You know, what could be their downfall if they don't end up going as far as they want to? I appreciate you all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.